Hey, good morning, everybody. I see we still have attendees signing in, so we'll give them a couple more minutes and then begin. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining in. Welcome to the Citrix Ready webinar with Star-to-Star Communications. Today, we have the webinar on growing revenue with enterprise communications for Citrix Workspace. And we have two speakers with us, Nitin Sharma, who is our Senior Product Marketing Manager with Citrix for Workspace Services. And we have Mick Morales, Senior Director Sales from Star-to-Star Communications. So I'm going to hand over the presenter access to Nitin, and then we will begin. Hey, Nitin, over to you.
Thank you. So let me go ahead and show my screen. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. As was mentioned, my name is Nitin Sharma, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Workspace Services. So what I wanted to do is kind of give a high-level overview as far as where we are with our Citrix Workspace. So I've been with Citrix for about 8 years now. And most of the folks that are familiar with Citrix will know that some of the key things that customers will leverage our solutions are to address some of the key things that they'll, some of the key industry issues that they're facing. Typically with most folks will know us from XenApp or XenDesktop, being able to centrally deliver a key critical application such as, customer record or a key enterprise application that allows IT to centrally manage and users to securely access that application. So going forward, we've actually further developed our product portfolio to what it is that is the Citrix Workspace. So before I delve into the Citrix Workspace, when we were looking at designing the solution, we looked at all of the key things that organizations are facing and trying to resolve today, whether, the introduction of a lot of web and SaaS applications now that have entered the enterprise, the ability to control those applications, as well as the multitude of amount of devices that are now being leveraged to access corporate data. The average consumer now tends to have, or the average employee tends to have now 2 to 3 devices, maybe up to 5, that actually can be leveraging corporate data. So it's how do you ensure that you're managing that device, as well as allowing them to securely share corporate information with their colleagues, with still maintaining IT control. And then a couple of the key things that sort of has always been in our wheelhouse is supporting, organizations are still looking at Windows 10 migrations, helping them be a little bit more agile when it comes to, acquiring new organizations, and still supporting a remote workforce as we're seeing that becoming more popular now, and some of the previously secure aware organizations are looking at extending secure remote access. And then now, supporting a multi-cloud hybrid cloud initiative and ensuring optimal user experience when it comes to delivering solutions from a public cloud. So with that in mind, we actually developed what's called our Citrix Workspace to provide end users with that digital workspace. Before I go into that, there are solutions that organizations can leverage that address each one of those things in the previous slide. But when you're looking at multiple vendors and introducing it into your infrastructure, you also can introduce some sort of complexity, whether or not that's, and then we've learned with that complexity can increase costs. So with that, you have like, could cost up to $800 per user per year when you're introducing multiple vendors in your corporate infrastructure. So with that, when we look at the workspace, we're looking at the workspace as the ability to deliver securely your apps and your desktops, as well as your web and SaaS. Users get a unified app catalog to access all their applications, but also ensuring that they can, securely collaborate and share, their actual files by also giving IT the ability to manage those devices that are going to be accessing corporate data. And on a secure network, regardless of if they're on the company network or if they're at home and off network, and also giving IT administrators the ability to delve into the analytics of how they're accessing that data, so they can get information on how the Citrix infrastructure is performing, as well as visibility on key security issues that how they're accessing that information. And then the goal of it is to provide a consistent user experience no matter the device that they're using. So this is a good example of the workspace that we introduced last year. This new unified experience that's consistent on pretty much any device. This will look like the same if I were to access this on an iPad as well as or a Chrome device. Now, from an end user perspective, I actually don't even know where these applications are coming from. They could be on-premise applications, on-prem Windows apps. They could be cloud-hosted Windows apps, or they can be SaaS apps. But once I authenticate through a Workspace app with my main Active Directory credentials, I could actually authenticate into these web and SaaS apps without having to re-log in. And the same goes, like I could have access to my on-prem desktop. There could be a cloud-hosted desktop for a specific reason. And we also support the newly announced Windows Virtual Desktop. So you can serve Windows Virtual Desktops to your end users while getting the same Citrix security and controls on top of that. And then when it comes to data, from the end user perspective, I could actually have on-prem access, my access to on-prem docs, whether they're network shares, or they can actually do cloud-hosted docs. So, like for example, like OneDrive for Business. The key thing here is basically this is all right there for me from an end user perspective, right when I launch my Citrix Workspace. So I can have access to pretty much everything it is that I need to actually do some, Git work without having to switch between windows or minimize windows or jump between apps. So that was a kind of brief look at what we're at today with the Citrix Workspace. But we wanted to build on that momentum of the workspace and improve what it is that it means to be productive when it comes to working. As I was mentioning before, there's a number of applications. A lot of people do work within more than just one specific application. And what that does, it can prevent productivity growth. We've actually done some analysis on seeing what we've seen some trends, like with the introduction of the internet. A lot of people assume that people are going to be more productive when it comes to it is that they're doing their day job. But with application sprawl, it actually can be a little bit more counterproductive. So we're seeing that kind of like, basically, they're leveraging multiple devices a day. They're constantly switching between applications. Majority of their time is spent searching for specific data that's relevant for their job. They're using, as I was mentioning, multiple apps a day, multiple passwords across the various web and SaaS apps. So we've addressed a majority of this with the Citrix Workspace as it is today, but looking forward, we're introducing what's called the Citrix Workspace with Intelligence. So a good example I like to use on this is an example of like a photo, the Office photocopier. Has a number of buttons, has a number of functionality, but most people, when they come up to it, just need to make a copy. That's about 90% of the work that's going to be used on that specific machine. So the same can go for like applications. For example, like expense reporting app or SAP. Sometimes if my specific job just requires me to do approval of expense reports, I only need to do that. I don't need to log into that application and go through the multiple layers just to get to that one little task that I need to do. So with the Workspace with Intelligence, we're introducing what's called micro apps. So within the actual Citrix Workspace home screen, me as an end user, for my specific job task, I will actually get information within the specific applications that I use and see which tasks that I need to do that are specific to my job. For example, if I'm signing off on expense reports, it will actually present that specific action within the Citrix Workspace that I can then approve or deny that expense report right from the Citrix Workspace app without having to log in to SAP and going into it. So our goal is to reduce the amount of time and the amount of clicks and leverage the recommended actions for the applications that I use, all in the goal to improve productivity and also improve the end user experience. So with the Intelligent Workspace and the Citrix Workspace overall, we work with a lot of our Citrix Ready partners to leverage, a lot of the things that they're doing and the problems that they're solving to improve end user productivity and performance by also allowing employees to properly collaborate with amongst each other. So with that, I wanted to hand it over to Mick to talk about how the Star-to-Star solution is complementing and working with us on delivering that goal of optimized experience.
Cool. Thank you, Nitin.
There you go.
Okie dokie. All right, this is my presentation there. Did we go back to the beginning? Okay, just jumping forward. Can you see my deck?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's ended up on that one, but I'll just jump forward. Okay. So thank you, Nitin, and good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick background. Up until recently, I worked at obviously Citrix, and very familiar with the service provider business, and obviously the business value of what Citrix brings to the market in terms of broadly what the industry is, and Nitin did an excellent job, obviously, in articulating that value. From a start-to-start perspective, just to give everyone some context, obviously. Very simply, we're a unified communications provider, but we do much more than that, and I'll touch on that. However, just to give everyone a sense of size and scale, we're probably about the 5th largest unified communications provider in the US. I'm not going to necessarily read every one of these bullets. We have about 60,000 customers in the market, and probably one of the highest retention rates, both in terms of the length of time that customers stay with Start, and of course our rate of growth and so on. 40 million minutes per minute. We also are a global operator, so we're not necessarily based only in the US, but I am focusing for the purposes of today really on our business here in the US and partnering with Citrix and how we can grow that business together with our partners. Just moving on, the solution. So we provide a full spectrum communication solution. Really, historically, we worked very much in the SMB, but increasingly we're moving into the mid and enterprise markets to work with our customers. And we provide, as I said, a full spectrum of solutions from unified communications through to contact center, SD-WAN, collaboration, and some interesting things that we're doing in platform as a service in terms of integrating our solution with applications. As Nitin mentioned, in the Citrix world, all customers ideally are leveraging the technology and their applications, whether SaaS or traditional Windows-based applications, in that virtualized Citrix environment. And our strategy is to operate wholly within that environment and enable that productivity of the end customer without them having to move from Citrix to their external to Citrix, right? So integrate with those applications, etc., all the way through to SD-WAN. And increasingly, of course, as we focus on new partners and new MSPs that are joining this ecosystem, how do we combine the benefits of both what Start brings to the table and what Citrix brings to the table to provide what we call our Start-as solution, which leverages the benefits of both. Moving on, though, just again to give you everyone a sense of scale, we play across a full spectrum of unified communications all the way through to CPaaS. And the one interesting thing about Citrix also is, one, we're a software company, although we do provide both cloud and a hybrid solution for our customers. But the unique thing is we own the complete technology stack, right? So we don't license any third party. We leverage, obviously, strategic partnerships such as Citrix. But now we sit across UCaaS, contact center, collaboration, as I said, across that complete spectrum. And by incorporating Citrix into our stack, it extends us into productivity, and it plays even more so in terms of the effectiveness of collaboration, unified communications, and the integration of that suite across the enterprise. And of course, as we launch our SD-WAN solution, that'll extend us also further into networking. And just as an aside, we have one of the largest SD-WAN implementations in the US, historically focused on voice, and now we're expanding that to include data, of course, as part of our ecosystem, or the landscape that we're rolling out to our customers. But the interesting thing is we own the technology. It's software. Think of us as an ISV in many respects, right? And all of it runs within the cloud. And of course, as I'll touch on, inside Citrix without having to move outside the Citrix ecosystem. So what are we trying to do? The opportunity here is significant. As most of you on this call, I'm sure, are either existing service providers, maybe your CSAs, that resell Citrix technology, or maybe you're a managed service provider that's looking at how do you create or expand your portfolio and create new market opportunities. Others may be thinking, I've historically resold Citrix as a CSA perspective, or I'm a CSP and I've got my hosted desktop as a service, which is fantastic business. But then again, how do I add on that and drive even more penetration of my customer base? How do I expand my market? And of course, where am I leaving either money on the table or maybe not in creating enough value or incrementally not delivering enough value to my customer base? And as you can see here, the opportunity is significant. $9 billion in the desktop service as a service space, UCaaS $45 billion. You guys can, I'm sure on this call, go through those numbers. But as you can see, when you take all that together and you look at also the CAGR for each one of those specific opportunities or segments, the opportunity to deliver value and to tap into that market is quite significant. And today, it's very fragmented, especially from a unified communications perspective. When I was still sitting at Citrix and I looked at many of our CSPs, many would either say, hey, listen, I'm not a UCaaS provider, I don't understand it, or I haven't got that skill set. Or two, they would provide a solution and would need to leave Citrix in terms of an end user experience, which added cost, complexity. Three, they would either try and integrate applications, and of course that added engineering cost and so on, and it took away from that end user experience that Nitin was alluding to earlier on. So this is a significant market opportunity where we can partner with existing CSPs, CSAs, new MSPs to deliver that cohesive, fully integrated solution, or digital experience, as I prefer to think of it, across the enterprise in terms of your customer base, and of course expand that customer base. So moving on, how do we conquer that cloud and digital market? And just some interesting points here. We obviously at Start survey our customers, talk to them a lot in terms of what their needs are, where they're going, and I refer here now to the enterprise, and I mean that across the whole spectrum of customers, right? As I mentioned, SMB, mid-market, and so on. And what comes out consistently is similar to metrics to when I was at Citrix. Mobility is very important. So how do we tackle that? Of course, as you would appreciate, unified communications is an integral part of how you can communicate and collaborate with a mobile workforce. So how do we enable our partners then to tap into that and deliver that value? Collaboration initiatives across the enterprise, a relatively small number, which was a surprise for me. However, that represents significant opportunity. And of course, we know that in the SMB space, there's about a 46-50% take-up rate in terms of collaboration and so on. And of course, when you look at the mid-market and enterprise, it's important, but there isn't the momentum that we would expect, right? It's gradually building up, and that's what we want to tap into. 76% of enterprises have integrated one voice with at least one application. So what's happening with the remainder of the applications? And that speaks specifically to not only unified communications, but also what's happening in the CPaaS space, and how can Start enable our partners to leverage that and deliver that fully integrated solution again. And you're probably picking up on a central theme here: integration across the enterprise in a digital world, so that end user experience is not only bringing in consistency, but also the benefits of security and everything else that goes into that productivity story. And of course, at the end there, 64% of our partners and customers, are in the early stages of a digital cloud transformation. And of course, I've attended numerous industry events, my boss and I, Michelle Accardi, and consistently we're seeing that this is a space that's picking up momentum, and it isn't necessarily about telephony. It isn't only about unified communications. It's about how do you deliver a complete end-to-end digital transformation strategy, and how do you leverage cloud to deliver that agility, that operational cost savings, and so on, to every facet of an enterprise today, regardless of whether it's an SMB or a larger enterprise and mid-market player. That said, some other interesting trends, right? So 91% of enterprise customers have remote workers, and I think anyone who already works in the Citrix world would not be surprised at that, right? I mean, everyone has remote workers. I joked when I first joined Citrix, my team was largely based out of Fort Lauderdale. By the time I moved on, the complete sales team, of course, was remote and traveling all over the time and leveraging the benefits of our Citrix ecosystem. 61% of employee contractors, right? And, the average employee uses in excess of 8 applications. And of course, that differs depending on industry. If you're working in legal and accounting, I've seen some metrics and data that says, they use upwards of 50 applications, right? If you go into healthcare, et cetera, it's got a different variation, but obviously 8 applications, right? And think about the complexity in terms of the devices, the locations, the security element, the user experience. Are they SaaS-based applications, Windows-based applications, right? These are significant trends that we, from a partner perspective, as Start are trying to tap into and deliver the ability to our customers to leverage this and deliver value to their customers, right? Our partners and their customers. So what are we trying to do? So the one central theme here that I want to share with everyone, of course, is that unified communications is part of the Workspace story, right? If your theme is, and your focus is to deliver productivity, if you want to leverage the cloud, if you want to assist your customers to digitally transform their business and evolve over time, unified communications and this complete portfolio of offerings integrated are a key part of that. Today, typically, we have partners that are in one of these little circles, right? Someone is in that contact center space. Someone is coming from an SD-WAN perspective. Many on this call would be coming from a desktop as service perspective, right? Others are coming from a unified communications, etc. Our strategy is to enable our partners to ultimately be able to leverage what they're currently doing very successfully, and then ultimately how do they move to that central area where they can bring all those elements together, be able to engage their customers from a variety of perspectives, and then integrate that solution, integrate that portfolio, integrate those services in a uniform way, securely, etc., to maximize the value they're delivering to their end customers. And of course, unified communication is an integral part of that workspace story from our perspective. So how do we accelerate that digital transformation? Well, as I said earlier on, Citrix is obviously what I consider and what we at Start consider to be the benchmark in terms of user experience. We're partnering extremely close with the technical team and the product teams, and we've gone out of our way, of course, to rejig, if I can use that term, or redevelop our technology, keeping in mind that we own the complete stack, right, from a technology perspective. So what we've done is we've taken our complete technology stack and made it, enabled it to run, in quotation marks, natively within Citrix. What does that mean? Today, as I've been spending some cycles with partners across the US, we've got either CSAs that are reselling Citrix and come across unified communications, collaboration opportunities, and so on. And one, they either pass them on to someone else because they consider it too complex from an engineering perspective and so on. Others spend a lot of cycles trying to re-engineer the technology and, of course, make it work as effectively as possible. But as many of you on this call would appreciate, when someone constantly is jumping in and out between Citrix and something that doesn't run in Citrix, from a unified communications perspective, of course, there's packet loss, video latency issue, jitter, and so on. However, it also generates a whole bunch of other complexity. The user isn't necessarily always happy, generates a whole bunch of trouble tickets, and so on, right? So, and then it has a ripple effect there in terms of the broader solution. And I'm just using CSAs as an example. I'm also using systems integrators that we've been talking to. I've got MSPs out there that are looking to become service providers from a Start perspective, and they all have consistently similar challenges when they come up to a Citrix environment. So our initiative has been, how do we take that complete stack, put it inside Citrix and the workspace, and take all those challenges away and reinforce not only the benefits of Citrix from a security perspective and so on, but integrate it with those applications and ensure that that user experience is seamless between the technologies that come together on that workspace. And ultimately, to Nitin's earlier point, that's all about driving productivity. The end user experience is about adoption, right? Ultimately, it's about how do you drive that productivity, right, and enable organizations to go to market effectively. So the benefits from our perspective, of course, are how do all these things come together, and I don't want to harp on this too much, but we can think that when you combine it with a digital workspace, it is about more effective collaboration. Nitin touched on, security, flexibility, unified access, and so on. So our complete stack sits in that digital world to deliver that much more effective, fully integrated collaboration for the worker. Okay, and obviously that is a service that an existing CSP, an MSP, even the CSAs can leverage when they're delivering those solutions. And I'll walk through in terms of how we support our partners to do that most effectively. This slide here, the graphics are a little bit off, but what I was trying to show here is regardless of the role an individual has within an organization, the complete solution provides a digital experience across the enterprise. So whether you're a department, an employee, a call center, etc., our complete stack sits within Citrix and runs horizontally within an organization. Now, from a Citrix perspective, from a CSA, this is also interesting, and a CSP. It's also interesting because it allows, we've been very conscious at Start how Citrix is working to enable their solution to become general purpose within any enterprise. And this is really to deliver the value across an enterprise, regardless of a particular department, etc. Right? So our focus has been how can we accelerate that by partnering, whether they're with CSPs, MSPs, CSAs, and so on, of course, and our ability to cut horizontally and then integrate within those applications, regardless of role, is an accelerator for that to happen from a general purpose perspective. Now, having said that, of course, what do we do? What do we do as an organization when we're partnering with our partners? So let me just broadly touch across the value that we bring to the table, right? So full spectrum applications across the enterprise. We're delivering it to CSA. we're delivering it to CSAs, we're delivering it. So if you're an MSP, sorry, let me back up. If you're an MSP today, looking to take Star to market or to take a hosted desktop solution to market, we're here for you. We will help you go to market and take our solution and broaden it and incorporate it into your technology stack. We typically would call that Stardust. If you're a CSP today, obviously you've invested, you've got your Citrix solution running in your data center or in the cloud, and you're providing your desktop as a service. Our solution will sit on top of that, and our technical guys, our marketing, our branding team will work with you to take unified communications on top of your Citrix solution to market. And that's all about developing a cohesive go-to-market strategy and how you take that to market. Equally so, if you're a new CSP that just recently joined the ecosystem or the Citrix CSP program, again, you're investing in taking your desktop as a service to market. And we're interested in enabling you to accelerate that go-to-market. Of course, we want to position and put our our UCaaS solution in your stack. And we will work with you again as part of our white glove program to accelerate your ability to go to market. Obviously, focusing on unified communications, but being conscious of the fact that you're also taking a broader desktop as a service solution. All right. So there's a number of ways we can bring all that to bear and enable our partners to go to market. Now, that said, there's a number of things that come together in our partner ecosystem. So one, and I'll show you some detail of how we do this. We have a product marketing team, we call it the agency internally, that we leverage to assist our partners to develop an effective go-to-market plan. We enhance, configure the solution. We have a professional services organization, as you should expect, right, in terms of how you can tap into these organizations and leverage our resources for you to go to market. Our training is geared not only around unified communications, but we're very conscious also of how the whole Citrix ecosystem works. We're very familiar with desktop as a service and so on, and we can work with you in terms of enabling your sales force relative to desktop as a service that you're also already taking to market and how to position unified communications in that context. We have the highest margins and the best retention rate in the market in terms of our channel partners, right? And we want to tap into that, of course. And obviously, we have a complete stack of products and services that you can take to market, ranging, as I said earlier on, from unified communications all the way through to collaboration SD-WAN. And for those new partners, MSPs that are looking to join Star, of course, we've also got our Star DAS solution that you can leverage to go to market much quicker. For existing CSPs, of course, you've already made the investment, right? So you've already got desktop as a service. So we would be looking to see how we can accelerate not only your ability to take that to market, but also how to incorporate unified communications into your solution and offering. So moving on, we know, obviously, as you're many aware, is that everyone gets on one of these calls and says, hey, listen, we're aligned, we'll support, whatever. I just wanted to share with you guys, though, where the rubber meets the road and how we're investing to make our partners very successful. So this is a typical example of how we're going to market with certain partners. We develop a go-to-market plan, and I'll show you the team that's dedicated to doing that. But we also we have a dedicated sales team that allows our partners to tap into and integrate with their own sales organization so that we can execute across the US. So this is not only about, hey, here's a little bit of our technology. We put it as part of your stack. You go to market, do a little bit of branding, and then, you're on your own. We will leverage our regional sales force. We have a national sales force. We have regional technical engineers that will integrate with your team, right? We know how Citrix sells. We know how a typical CSP sells. We know how a CSA engages also with their partners. And we will integrate with those partners to help you position not only your solution, but obviously the merits of an integrated unified communication and desktop as a service solution, all the way through to ultimately, if we need to, integration with certain applications that you may either have on your stack or within your customer base. So sales is very important, but equally, when you have marketing and branding, I remember when I was at Citrix, and also when I worked in previous lives, the technology is the technology. It's very unique and so on. But if you can't get sales, you can't get marketing and branding and demand generation to align effectively, you're really challenged, right? So what I also wanted to share for you is that we've made a significant investment. We have a pretty large team, and it's growing as the business grows, dedicated to enabling our partners to market, brand, and execute. This is all about digital transformation. It's all about leveraging social media, digital marketing, critical events that are relative to an industry, and so on, and tapping into this organization. And, I just didn't want to put bodies, blank boxes up there. I wanted to share with everyone that these are real people that we have, and I consider this to be a significant differentiator in terms of partnering and going to market successfully with someone like Star2Star. When you combine this, our development team, the fact that we own our own technology, we can make adjustments if we need to, the sales team and the extensive pre-sales engineers that we have across the US, coupled with marketing and branding, it is a recipe for a very successful partnership and execution. And then ultimately, just to give you a sense of what we do in the marketing side, right? It's not only about partner enablement. I just wanted to give everyone a sense of how all these elements come together, right? It is about bringing all these things together, partnering, branding, lead generation, and so on, right? So it's ultimately about execution. And again, all of it about developing a go-to-market plan that aligns to your financial objectives and, of course, the customers that you want to deliver value to, right? And as part of our channel, of course, whether you're a CSA, whether you're an MSP, whether you're an existing CSP, focusing on UCaaS and bundling that on top of your DAS solution, we, as I said earlier on, we have probably the best commission rates as a channel partnership in the US. Okay, and of course, one of the key things that we do at Star2Star, and it's a great thing that it's one of our unique differentiators. We do own our technology. We can be very innovative, and just carrying through with that philosophy of innovation. Here's an example of what I want to share with you that I'm working with one of our partners, and we may replicate this across a number of organizations. Right? Is a fully paid for trip to Europe for our partner. Right? The individual reps in our partner organizations that do close a bunch of business, and between now and March 31st, right? So I just wanted to share with you that not only can we be innovative in our technology and how we partner and how we enable our partners to go to market, but we can also tailor things specifically as part of that go-to-market strategy to your business, so that we can incentivize your salespeople and your business to engage correctly and grow the business on things that align to your growth goals, right? So that we can all have a back-to-back alignment, for want of a better term. And then ultimately, we've got a website up there now, up and running. You can either call me direct, or if you like to partner and keep it nice and simple, you can go to this particular website. It's all out there on LinkedIn and social media. And of course, partner, and we can take it from there as part of an ongoing process. And this is a simplified version of how we can connect with our partners remotely using our digital strategy. So on that note, I'll stop there. Hopefully we haven't gone over time, and I'm looking forward to hearing or connecting with anyone who wants to talk about partnering.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Mick. Nitin, thank you so much. We have quite a few questions flowing in, and I think we have enough time to answer a few. I'm going to go with the first one. I guess this is more for you, Mick. What are you doing to ensure security in the collaboration, the UCaaS area?
Okay, so that's a long discussion, but we are building, we have encryption, and we're going through a number of certifications ranging from HIPAA through to, I can't remember the list that we're working through, but David, our marketing guys, if I can get the email address, I can easily send you the details. But having said that, security, we're tackling it in the following way. We're talking about it in terms of security in depth. So not only are we leveraging security that we're building into our cloud-based solution from a Stardust perspective, we leverage the value that Citrix has, whether that's analytics, hardening of web browsing and so on, all the way through to encryption and two-factor authentication, etc., that's being built into our technology and the certification that we're working through.
Okay, and how is customer protection extended?
Extended. Can you expand on that question? I may not be able to answer it fully.
Okay, I'm going to wait for an answer on that one. In the meanwhile, will we be able to offer two-factor authentication for security?
Yes. The simple answer is yes. And our head of product, Trey, I think is writing a white paper on that, or there'll be some communication around that.
Okay. So Nitin, this is probably for you. I don't know. So how do you push out updates for Citrix?
So I imagine that's sort of the question as far as like how to push out app updates. So basically, they should be able to do it through the management console, but I haven't really, to get more specific on that, that one would be something that I could follow up on.
Okay. And there's one more. This is probably for you as well. We are a LTSR customer. Do you have plans for another LTSR release?
Yeah, so we released so for folks that are not familiar with it, we have multiple release schedules. So we have what's called a current release, which is something that we do every quarter. And then we have what's called a long-term service release, which is a release that will take a lot of what's in the current release, the quarterly releases, and they bundle them. And we release that every 3 years. Typically, customers go LTS, a long-term service release, or LTSR, for for more regulation stringent industries. So it needs to be certified for a specific reason. So we are pushing out our next long-term service release within this quarter, and that one's going to feature all of the current release features that we released over the past 3 years into that specific release. So that's going to be coming soon.
Okay, and you spoke about Workspace with Intelligence. When is that releasing?
So that one's also something that is going to be coming soon, within before the end of the year. So just be mindful and check out our latest updates that we come out with on our website, citrix.com, or our blog site, which also features updates from the various product managers and executives. That's going to be citrix.com/blogs.
Okay, and what is required to have the intelligent features?
So there is still being worked on the pricing, like the actual packaging, but that one's going to be available within the Citrix Workspace. So if you're a customer at Citrix Workspace, you should be able to take advantage of the Workspace with intelligent features.
Okay, there's one question on email encryption. How do we secure email via mobile devices?
So I imagine that's for me. So within the Citrix Workspace, there is a part of our Citrix endpoint management solution comes with a corporate email client. So that's called Secure Mail. So that one is going to be basically a managed containerized email client that end users can access on their mobile devices. They'll see like Citrix Secure Mail. IT can restrict it, where basically an end user can't send or receive emails unless they're going to be using the Citrix Secure Mail solution, and that's part of the Citrix Workspace. Because that's something that's a way to ensuring email encryption. So if a user ends up leaving the company, IT can just basically kill the access of it and remove that specific client off that device, so they don't have access to corporate email.
Cool. Thanks, Nitin. There's one coming up for Mick. Mick, what steps do I need to take if I want to become a partner, and what kind of margins can I expect?
The process is very simple. One, you can either reach out to me directly, or if you like, you can go to this particular website and log on, and then we will reach out to you. But my details are up there if you want to reach out to me directly. So that's the first part of the question. In terms of margins, we have our standard MSRP margins. Depends if you're a wholesaler or a reseller. We can discuss that offline, but I mean, generally it's about, I think it's a 20% margin or commission, I should say, on the MSRP for a retailer. On the wholesale side, remember the margins are really based on how you want to sell the solution, right? So obviously, I'm going to make an assumption you're an existing Citrix CSP and you want to take our unified communication solution and put it on top of that. You know, from what we're seeing in the market, you know, you can price upwards of $160, I think, $150, $160, the combined bundled solution, right? And then on top of that sits margins, etc. So that's all part of the go-to-market strategy when we look at, you know, your market, how you're segmenting that market, what kind of growth rates you're trying to bring in there, and of course, how you can reduce some cost to expand those margins, right? Also, from a wholesale perspective, I'll just use that as an example. You know, we work on forward pricing, for want of a better description, right? So we look at how the business will grow over the next 12, 24, 36 months, and we adjust pricing to meet along those lines in terms of you know, an agreed go-to-market plan.
Great, thanks, Mick. There's another one. Do I also need to be a UCaaS expert to sell Star to Star?
Not at all. What you need to do is understand being a service provider or a reseller of Citrix, and I'll be very simple here. As I mentioned earlier on, right? We are adjusting our organization to be able to align to our service provider or reseller partners. And our goal is to keep it as simple as possible for you. So the intent here would be, as long as you understand your customers, and you know, obviously what you're trying to achieve at a business level, we will either one, enable you to sell, or as we're already doing with a number of partners, my sales guys and my sales team is working collaboratively on site with other partners, sales guys, to meet directly with their end customers. So to be very simple, walk us through the door. We will help you close that deal. We will then help you onboard that customer, and we will even help you integrate applications with that customer with our unified communication solution. To us, that is part of the partnership and accelerating your ability to go to market. It also brings your cost down and contributes. That's why I couldn't answer the margin discussion perfectly, because it does bring your cost down, and again, it drives margins. And you can either pass some of those cost savings through to your end customer, or of course you can charge and drive higher margins, obviously, right? But the key takeaway there is the answer is no, and we're here to execute with you, with the customer in mind.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you already answered this one. I have another one coming up. How would you assist a partner to onboard an end user?
Oh, good question, right? So let's just assume we're engaged, and you're, you know, again, I'll keep it nice and simple. You're an existing Citrix CSP, okay? And you take our unified communication solution and you put it on your stack, and you're providing now that as a service, right? And let's just assume also that partner wants to integrate, you know, with one or two applications, right? We have a team that will work with you to develop the necessary APIs, micro apps. You know, I'm getting into technical stuff, into the weeds a little bit here. But the very simple story, my earlier point is, we will take on that responsibility for you and help you deliver the value to the customer. It's on us to help you, all right?
Cool, thank you. All right, everybody, we have a few more minutes left. If you have any questions for Mick or Nitin, please type in the chat window and we shall take it up. There's one more. I'm a current partner and have been asking for new email campaigns. When will these new email campaigns be available for Stardust?
Are you an existing Star-to-Star partner? I'm going to make, but I'm going to assume you're an existing Star-to-Star partner, but the answer would be exactly the same for new or existing. I just had the names up there for everyone in marketing. You've got my details there. It's as simple as getting in touch with the marketing organization. I work very close with them in terms of developing campaigns that are specific around a partner need, right? And we'll get it done. It's just a challenge of scheduling and coordinating and make sure it fits part of a go-to-market plan that we have in place. That's the easiest question today.
Yes, it was a Star-to-Star partner.
Okay.
Okay, and any other questions, anybody for Nitin or Mick? the coordinates were already there, or you can just reach out to Mick for any direct questions. Okay, there's one more. How can Star2Star, a Citrix partner, in terms of can partner with Citrix in terms of go-to-market? Can Star2Star work regionally and across the US?
Yep, the simple story there is yes. We have partners both regionally and nationally. My team is a nationally based team, but obviously we align also regionally, right? So the simple answer is yes. And remember, as I mentioned earlier on, it's about a go-to-market strategy, right? So your go-to-market could be regionally based or nationally based. And working with Dave and the marketing team, working with our technical team, will cater to those needs, right? Ultimately, we just focus on what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve, and we'll adapt to that scenario.
Okay, there's one more for Meg. Just spoke to David. The new Stardust campaigns will be out in the next 2 weeks, if you want to mention. Okay, that was for you, Meg, by Michelle.
There you go.
All right. There's one from Nathan. How does somebody set up, what if an application shows up in the Workspace feed?
Sorry, what was the question?
How does somebody set up what if an application shows up in the Workspace feed?
Oh, so there's, when we ship the Workspace with Intelligence, it's going to come with what's called a micro app builder. And then we're going to support a various number of applications at launch, key like major branded applications that most organizations use. And then with that micro app builder, you can determine exactly what it is from that application will show up in that end user's feed based off their job task or their typical types of actions. And then paired with Citrix Analytics, the admins will get a lot of information as far as how users are utilizing applications, so they can actually also take that information and build a micro app off of that. For example, if I'm noticing someone that, as I was going to go back to using the example earlier, if they're always logging into SAP and doing expense reporting and expense reporting approvals, the IT admin can see that data and build a micro app around that for that specific end user.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Nitin. Okay, I think we've answered most of the questions. I'll give a moment there in case there's anybody else. Okay, so thank you, Nitin, thank you, Mick. I think it was a great webinar and pretty interactive. And thanks everybody for attending. And we'll be sending a mail with the recording of the webinar in case you want to revisit the same. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.